by offering hearts that was ripped out of those victims. Dear friends, today I'm at a camp, a young life camp called Shartops, 2 hours south of Chattanooga. And I just wanted to do a quick video, but look at this location, it's just beautiful. This is the lodge for the adults lodge. They just do it right. They just know how to do it. And there comes the leader right there, Dave Huskin. He's the one that runs the show. Awesome guy. But anyways, I wanted to address the whole issue of Halloween because we're right around the corner from that festivity. So Hallow, what does that mean? Hallow is actually to make holy, to sanctify. And we go back actually a ways when Pope Boniface IV, moved the All Saint holidays from May to actually November 1. This is back in 834. And he did that to offset a pagan holiday. The pagan holiday was the festival of Samhain. But that pagan holiday didn't go away, so actually they adopted the All Saints, the Hallow, and decided to attach the eve of Hallow. And from there we're getting Halloween, which is the term that we're still using today. But what was this festivity? What was this pagan holiday back in the days? Well, we had to go roughly 2,000, 2,100 years back. We're dealing with the Celtics or Celtics, and in particular, we're dealing with Druids. Those people were actually priests or teachers, but they used a lot of occult practices, dark black magic, and actually they were even feared by the kings of those areas. We're talking about Ireland, Scotland, and the British Isles. The Druid believed that this Samhain, the Lord of the Dead, would actually scatter spirits during the beginning of the dead season. It's after the harvest, leaves are starting to fall, everything goes dormant. And they thought that the barrier between the physical realm and the underworld or the other world was the thinnest during October 31st. And that's when the spirits of the dead and human would actually interact. So the spirits of the dead that came, if they didn't find a shelter, if they didn't find food, would actually start wreak havoc with the people. And what the Druids would do, they would actually sacrifice virgin girls or animals to this Lord of the Dead by offering hearts that was ripped out of those victims in order to placate his anger. The general population was actually asked to put some food outside of their house so that the spirit would not be upset. And from there, we're getting the idea of trading food for potential curses, the famous trick or treat. And some people, in order to confuse some of those spirits, would dress up with costume like witches or ghosts or some grotesque figure just to confuse the spirits of the dead. And from here, we're getting now the tradition of wearing costume as well. And Halloween today remains the high festivity for Satanists, for witches, for those who practice Wicca. And it's kind of like the Black Christmas, really, for them. But it has been commercialized to the rest of the population. Last year alone, for instance, in the US, we spent over $8 billion for this festivity. But the question is, do we celebrate it or not? This is kind of the dilemma, because a lot of people, for instance, do not celebrate Christmas, because if you're looking at the roots of Christmas, we're looking at the sun god Mitra. That was a very strong pagan holiday, and Constantine wanted to replace that holiday with the birth of Christ. And others do not want to celebrate Halloween because of its strong connection with, again, demonic activity and the underworld. But when you have little kids that want to dress up or want to go out, they want to go trick or treating, what do? It's not easy as a parent, to deal with this. And I remember when Marco actually was young, and that's part of the thumbnail on the video that you see at the very, very beginning. Our church actually was very creative. They offer an alternative night, so people would come bringing their kids dressed as biblical characters. And in this case, actually, I had a cross that was made out of cardboard, and I put Marco on the inside of it. You can see in the picture his hands kind of sticking out. And besides the church alternative, I think that personally we can learn from Paul. In Acts 17, when Paul was actually in Athens, he was in the midst of the Areopagus talking to a lot of the pagan brain, a lot of the pagan philosophers of that time. He says something very interesting. Let's read it together. That's Acts 17, and it's in verse 22. Paul then stood up in the meeting of the Areopagus and said, "Men of Athens, I see that in every way you're very religious." So he didn't condemn him. He didn't criticize him on the spot. Actually, he praised them. "You guys are very religious. For as I walked around and looked carefully at your objects of worship, I even found an altar with this inscription, 'To the unknown God.' Now, what you worship as something unknown, I'm going to proclaim to you." So he's using that platform. He's using those tradition, those pagan tradition of idolatry to actually proclaim the gospel. "The God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth, and does not live in temples built by hands." So he takes them right where they are and then shifts them, saying basically what you're doing is futile, it's not really working. Why? Because God doesn't reside in those temples nor in those statues. So it's kind of a nice switch. Take them where they are and bring them where you want them to be. And I think we can kind of do the same even perhaps with this holiday. Instead of thinking of the sacrifice of the virgins that will calm the spirit of this Lord of the dead, we're looking at the last sacrifice. We're looking at the blood of Christ as the ultimate sacrifice, which will obliterate any demonic activity because he has defeated the enemy on the cross. Perhaps we can focus on that. I just wanted to give you a little bit of the history. Thanks again for listening. I appreciate you. Keep praying for me. I'm praying for you guys. And again, if you like this video, please feel free to share it with your networks. Thank you. Have a great weekend, and I'll catch you next week. Ciao.